Marie-Claude Verdier. I'm the playwright for Seeker.
Hello, I'm Alexis Diamond, and I am the translator of Marie-Claude Verdier's Seeker. Okay.
Yeah, this is fun.
It's very fun. We're very happy.
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, so Marie-Claude, Seeker. Would you like to, when did you start working on Seeker?
I started working on Seeker in 2016, and I did a residency in Belgium for a month. So that was great because I was alone in a park working on the stars and the moon and Mars. So that was a lot of fun. And the show was first slated to be produced in 2020. And we're very excited about it. I was working with Justin Laramé, I was self-producing, and we were at Théâtre d'Aujourd'hui. It was so exciting to be bringing science fiction to the theater, and then COVID happened.
I remember it well.
Yeah. And so we were postponed by a year, so the production actually happened in the fall of 2021.
Yes.
But it was great in a way. Of all of this, it came out a good thing, which meant that we had a year more to work with a wonderful team of actors and also all the designers. So we really could have a lot of time to work on the text, and it was especially great with the actors because then we really put them to how they spoke and how their mannerism, and we changed the text for up until the opening night. So we had a huge time to work on this.
You can tell when you read the text. When you read the text, how carefully it's crafted, and because it's just the two of them in like a huis clos, like a
kind of a
singular, like real time. The two of them are stuck in a room together, and it's very finely wrought, and we find out about the two of them and the history of their relationship and how, because they were a couple, and then how they broke up, and there's also like a mega epic story. The science fiction part around them.
Yeah, it was about how to make the revelation happen, and we really wanted it to be about them, about their relationship and their intimacy, and not to be just this large-scale history about science fiction. So the sci-fi is kind of on the side of it, but it's also really two exes having to work together. So that was quite something. And then we were very successful, and we're very pleased about it. And we did a reprise in 2023.
Yes.
So that was great too.
That was also super successful.
It was. We were very pleased.
Yeah, yeah. So it got a lot of attention critically, but also audiences came, right? It sold out. You had extensions.
Yeah. So we were very pleased, and then we're starting to think about how it could happen in English.
Yes.
And as we knew each other, we started to talk about it.
Yes, I was already interested in the play. You were inviting me to workshops as you were working on it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it wasn't as early as 2016, but like close to the beginning.
Like the year before.
So I was following the text, following its evolution, and so we knew we wanted to work on it. And so I saw it in 2021, and then I, of course, saw it in 2023, and then Lynn Paquette from Talisman saw it in 2023 and fell in love with the production. She couldn't say enough. And she and I had already worked. And she and I had already worked. I'd already done a translation for Talisman before, at least one, Midnight by Marie-Hélène Larose-Truchon. And so Lynn and I were talking, and then, this was like also a slow evolution of how to put together that translation. And I was thinking that it might be interesting to talk about, because the characters in the play are actually English speakers.
Yeah, that was a funny thing because I studied in Glasgow at Glasgow University for my master's, and I wanted to do a play where the characters were not actually from Quebec, but they would They were from Scotland. They were both from Scotland, so Loman and Neve, and they have a daughter called Maeve. And Neve lives in the U.S. because that's where the space program is, and she goes on these missions to Mars because she studies rocks and rocks formation. And Loman is working still in Glasgow. So, and I was a big fan, and still am, a big fan of Licorne and what they did, and I used to go see a lot of plays there, and I saw how they would translate plays from Scotland, from Ireland, from the UK, and how it seemed very natural. So in a way, I was writing characters that were dubbed in French because their language was very Quebecois, and it was when we worked with the actors, they were speaking in their own language, in their own words. It felt very natural for them. And the idea was to get very close, to get this idea of intimacy as well, so that people would feel these characters very close to them. And because then we had to explain all the sci-fi, so not everything was alien.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a big thing. So I think for a translation, that must have been kind of a funny thing.
It was something that you and I think we had to talk about.
Indeed.
From the beginning of the translation, and so for earlier drafts of the translation, we were trying to find, you and I together, I will say, trying to find a way that maybe Lomond spoke that gave a flavor of his Scottishness.
Yeah.
And for
without
Neve,
going like full.
yeah, because
Scottish.
also I'm here and I'm not in Scotland, and so, but I did research into standard Scottish English
You did so much research.
and the way the verbs, the verbs are conjugated is a bit different than how we do it in Montreal, and so we tried that,
Yeah.
and I think in the end, especially during this amazing time we've had at the Playwrights Workshop Montreal, Glasgow, translation, residency in Tadoussac, that we've just come back from. We were trying to also find this intimate language, something that would fit the characters more comfortably. I think it still gives a bit of hint of Loman's, like the fact he's an academic. I think there's a bit of formality, but I think we've decided to come back to more Montreal.
Well, the original idea was that they will feel close to the audience they were talking to in a way. So I think we're just continuing on that process where they are going to feel very close to most of the audience. And then the space is going to be quite alien, but the characters will be quite close. So we're kind of just following through in this.
I think we're going to see how the language functions for the actors when we have our Talisman sponsored workshop.
Which is great because I think it's a text that really will benefit from that in the translation a lot. So it's really great to be able to try it on with the actors and see how they can fit the language and how it fits them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about Talisman and how Lynn works, that she's very much about the process of translation and really finding a way so that it doesn't feel when you're watching the play in English, you're not thinking, oh, it's a translation. This is French and it sounds French when I'm hearing it in English, that it really...
It comes into its own...
In English,
yeah. I think that's wonderful to think of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so the whole journey has been quite long.
Yeah.
I just was wondering also if you wanted to just touch on the technology in the play.
Indeed. Well, the play is set in a far future of 100 years or a bit more. So the funny thing is the play is called Seeker, and it was called Seeker in French too. But also all the words pertaining to technology were kept in English most of the time because he logs in files. He used all these words that Quebec people, Francophone use and make their own in a way. So they make a noun into a verb or they do different things. So he would do that. So I don't think that would be, maybe it was a bit of a challenge in the translation, but also just for the technology, because it's something that doesn't exist yet. It's not as if it was a chat group or a company or something that would be changing to time very rapidly. Then we can really keep what we have and not be too worried about technological changes. Even though they resonate with the play itself, I feel, is a bit immune for the next 100 years of what might happen.
I think that's what I also love about the play is that it's set in the future, but there's a bit of magic realism, which as you say, transcends like a technological reality. And it did make it. I mean, Seeker is Seeker, and the AI they find is called the Wizard, and which works very well in English. But you're right. Like there was a bit of challenge finding that kind of informality, like. In the language, I couldn't use like slacker sur les lumières.
Yeah.
Like we're still trying to find what exactly that
The swear
slang
words
is.
also always a fun one.
The swear words are always challenging. It's always a challenge to find like the best fit. It's true, swearing.
We have a wide array of.
Quebecois is so colorful in its profanity, and English is less so. But we're finding a way.
I'm really happy with what you came up with and how thorough you were in also finding where to change it and how, and dispersing them as well. So I think that's I think it's going to sound really great for them.
I hope so. I'm really excited about the upcoming production and the workshop.
Well, for me, as a playwright, there's of course this trust in your ability and in how you understand the play. I think now you understand more the rhythm of how I work, so we don't have to explain like the ligne brisée, which like when we're in Tadoussac, some people were also, most of the Quebecois playwrights, francophone, are working that way, and some of the translator or other were a bit taken aback or questioning that. So
true.
there's something interesting in the fact that like you know what it means and how I use it.
Yeah.
So to me, it's very comforting. And
That's good.
See?
That's true. Okay, so just to try to explain a bit more. The way that you work is that you don't write prose, you write like
the
a line. It's more almost poetic.
It's how they breathe.
Yeah.
And the change of ideas and how they breathe.
That's true, exactly. And so it's a bit challenging because even though English and French are quite closely related, there is a different syntax in English.
And it's going to end not the same way.
The emphasis of the sentence lands a bit differently. And so it's been, that was actually a lot of what I did in Tadoussac was kind of trying to refine the rhythm and find where the line breaks go and where the breath comes. And of course, again, we'll verify this in the workshop. Super important in the workshop.
I think it's a bit like, you know, when they used to translate those Beatles songs in French?
Yes.
And they had to make it sound good.
Yes.
And say sometimes the same thing. So I think there's something about a song where you have to hit the same breaks and the same notes, but making it your own and making it, in English, it doesn't sound like a translation.
Exactly.
So that's a tough bit. That's a bit I admire that you can find that and they make it their own.
I'm feeling pretty good going into the workshop that we have something solid for the actors to sink their teeth into. And then, of course, we'll refine it even further. I totally am prepared for that. But yeah, I think that's very important to me also as a writer myself, but also in trying to capture your voice, which is very particular, very Marie-Claude Verdier. Nobody else writes what you write. And so, and definitely, I feel like we have a shorthand. I definitely get it. And also it's to the point where I read your words and it's very transparent to me. And I see like it's already morphing into English on the page for me. So even when I hear it in production, I can already see it, hear it in English. So I think that helps a lot with our work together.